Hello all you shining stars and welcome to my channel, Shining Star Soup. I'm going to be doing Storytime Sundays mini-series, and in this little mini-series it's going to be my crazy relationships. So you might have seen my first one, which I'm going to be premiering these every Sunday. So last Sunday, where I talked about my crazy relationship with Scar. Well, this time for this story time, I'm talking about a relationship that wasn't so crazy, more or less, I don't know, kind of the one that got away, but I believe that everything happens for a reason, and if things would have turned out differently with this particular guy, I wouldn't be where I am today with the man that I am with, who I love very much. Alright, so we're gonna start, we're just gonna jump right into this story, and this was many years ago. It's been a while. I was writing a lot on the internet, doing my role playing, and I had my own message board role play, and I had met this guy who I'm going to call Summer. His nickname was a different season, but to protect him, if he ever finds my channel, I'm just going to call him Summer. And he was, I would have to admit, my first love. He definitely was. We wrote together for a few months before we actually met in person. And we would talk on the phone for hours. And keep in mind, I was living with my grandmother, and he was in the States. And there were calls to the States that lasted 6 hours. 6 hours. And the phone bill that I got from calling him and spending all night on the phone with him was upwards $600. $600 in long distance minutes that I had spent talking to this guy on the phone. Yeah, that was really embarrassing. That was one of the things I did to my poor grandma when I was a teenager. And I don't know, whatever, she must have ended up paying that bill because, yeah, I was young. I was young and foolish, but either way, because when the first phone bill came, I was like, okay, well, for $600, I could have got you here in person, and we could really get to know each other, and it would probably end up being cheaper. So he had agreed to come up to Canada from the States to meet me in person. And my grandma was okay with it, which was surprising. I guess she thought it would be cheaper too than the phone bill. Either way, it was obvious I was really into this guy. So he had come up on the Greyhound bus, and he was on the bus for a good 3 days. So by the time he got to me, he was pretty jet lagged bus lagged. So it took him about a day to kind of recover, but when you're meeting somebody online, you're really kind of nervous if you're going to have the same connection in real life that you've had on the phone or on the internet. And him and I did, and we hit it off really well. And I thought, we spent a lot of time together. He stuck up for me with my loser friends, and we really had a connection, and we had a couple of interesting experiences together. So when he did end up going back to the States, it was about, I think he stayed for a good 4 nights. 4 nights he stayed, and he met my family, and my aunt fell in love with him. Like, she just adored him. I used to call bingo back then, and he stuck around to hear me call bingo, and he helped set everything up and take everything down, and he was just an all-around sweetheart, this guy. So when he had gone back to the States, we continued talking, and I don't even think I was 18 yet. I was definitely maybe 18. I don't quite remember. It was after Scar. We'll just say that. And he had actually asked me over the internet to marry him. He wanted me to he wanted to marry me. He wanted me to get dual citizenship. He wanted to me to spend some time in the States, and he would spend some time in Canada, and we go back and forth. And uh, I said yes at first. And the thing was, I was still young. And even though I had really solid feelings for this guy, and even though I thought, this is it, I'm going to be married, I'm going to live in the States and live in Canada and have a future with Summer, I ended up changing my mind. And I guess I changed my mind because it was that gut feeling that told me, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe you should think about it. And it broke his heart. I really, really did break his heart. And him and we didn't talk for a while after I turned him down. We didn't talk for a long time. And over the years, we would go for a few months without knowing where we were. And then somehow fate, I guess, destiny, whatever you wanted to call it, would end up us connecting again in the weirdest of ways. I'd see him on one of the message boards, and we would talk, and it was instant. Instantly, we would just connect again, and we would start flirting, and we would get to the point where we'd almost get in a relationship again, and then we wouldn't, and then we would, and then we wouldn't. So that went on until, well, geez, I haven't talked to him online since my husband, really. It's been like 11 years since I've last talked to him. And he'll always be my might have, could have, but probably better that I didn't when it comes to that. But he was a really good guy, and he was really decent, and he was kind, and he was definitely still my fondest memory of any past relationships that I've had besides my current one. All right, so that about wraps up mini saga, mini chapter number 2. I hope all you shining stars have a shining stars day. Stay tuned for next Sunday's story time, where I have more stories on crazy relationships to come. Bye for now.